Hello, students. Welcome to my pond. I have a very nice and serene pond. I thought I would sit along it while I read to you. So in class, in the in-person version of aloud 360, we do a project about or using children's books, picture books that teach about some sort of social justice, immigration, refugee, civil war, immigration, poverty, things like that. So that didn't happen. Even with the cancellation of that project, I would still like to read to you a book. And the book I'm going to read to you is called A Different Pond. It is a book by Bao Phi, who is a Vietnamese author. And the reason why I picked this particular book is, for one, it's really good. And secondly, I have picked up a new hobby during quarantine, and that is the hobby of fishing. I'm going out for my big first fish tomorrow, so I'm looking to catch some bullheads. Got some new jigs and some bobbers and things like that. So I'm going to read to you A Different Pond, sitting by my pond. And while I read this book to you, I want you to think about a few things. I'm going to ask you some questions, so think about how you would answer those questions. I want you to think about what type of a compelling question you could ask students after reading this book. So this one in particular is about a Vietnamese family. They are dealing with immigration, family moving. And so I'll read it to you, and here we go. A Different Pond. Dad wakes me quietly so Mom can't keep sleeping. I will be hours before the sun come up. So I totally messed up that first page, so let me just try again. Dad wakes me quietly so Mom can keep sleeping. It will be hours before the sun comes up. In the kitchen, the bare bulb is burning. Dad has been up for a while making sandwiches and packing the car. Can I help, I ask? Sure, my dad whispers and hands me the tackle box. The street lights look brighter and the roads aren't so busy before the sun comes up. Dad turns on the heater and tells me stories. A kid at my school said my dad's English sounds like a thick, dirty river. But to me, his English sounds like gentle rain. We stop at the bait store on Lake Street. It always seems to be open. You're here early today, the bait man says. I got a second job, my dad explains. I have to work this morning. On a Saturday? The bait man asks. My dad nods. I feel the bag of minnows move. They swim like silver arrows in my hands. So they're obviously getting ready to go fishing. It's still dark when we get to the pond. We park the car and climb over the divider between the road and the trees. Notice there's a sign that says, "No trespassing, keep out." My dad holds my hand and walks ahead through the tangle and scrub. Step by step, he says. I'm thinking about what Dad told me, the bait man. If you got another job, why do we still have to fish for food, I ask. Everything in America costs a lot of money, he explains. I feel calluses on his hand when he squeezes mine. Sometimes, a Hmong man is at the pond. He speaks English like my dad and likes to tell funny jokes. Sometimes there is a black man there too. He shows me his colorful lure collection. This time it is just me and my dad. It is a little bit cold. I rub my hands together, yawn, and look up to see faint stars like freckles. As Dad steps up in a clearing, I gather small, thin twigs for a fire. They need to be dry and clean. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 10 more for later. I set one end of each twig down, the other up, leaning them in so they rest against each other and hold each other up. I put some rocks in a circle and set up the twigs, like a volcano, Dad reminds me. I get to the light with just one match, Dad nods. You want to put a minnow on the hook, Dad asks. I want to help, but I shake my head no. I don't want to hurt that little fish, even if I know it's about to be eaten by a bigger one. My dad smiles. He isn't upset with me. Dad hands me a sandwich, cold bologna between two pieces of bread. Careful of the spicy stuff, he says. There's half a peppercorn, like a moon split in two, studded into the meat. I used to fish by a pond like this when I was a boy in Vietnam, Dad says, biting into his sandwich. With your brother? I ask. He nods, then looks away. Dad tells me about the war, but only sometimes. He and his brother fought side by side. One day, his brother didn't come home. The bobber dips in the dark and Dad pulls, got one, he says, almost shouting. A crappie. A crappie. And soon another. Can I help, I ask? He nods and I use two hands to help guide the fish into the bucket. The fish feels slimy and rough at the same time. Dad laughs at the funny face I make. Dad smiles, his teeth broken and white in the dark because we have a few fish and he knows we will eat tonight. Time to go home. Dad must get ready for work. He washes his hands with a small nub of green and white soap. Then I do the same. I look at the trees as we walk back to the car. I wonder what the trees look like at that other pond in the country my dad comes from. By the time we get home, the sunlight counting through the windows is just a faint tint, blue and gray instead of gold. At home, Mom looks tired, but she smiles at the fish in the big white bucket. My dad changes his clothes and gets ready to go to work. He pats me on the back and says to Mom, "Our boy did a good job at the fire today." "You learn so quickly," Mom says. Then she asks me to help with the fish before she has to go to work too. I'm sad that she and Dad must leave, but not too sad. I know that later on they will both come home. Look after your baby brother, Mom reminds my brothers and my sisters. She means me. Then she gets on her bike and goes to work. I am not a baby. I think to myself, I helped catch dinner. Tonight, when we are all home, Dad will put rice in the cooker and Mom will fry the fish on both sides until they are crispy. I will bring out the jar of fish sauce that has flecks of chili pepper and carrots floating on top. At the table, my brothers and sisters will tell funny stories. Mom will ask about their homework. Dad will nod and smile and eat with his eyes half closed. Good fish, he will say to me. And I will smile and nod, and later, when we sleep, we will dream of fish in a faraway pond. So, a different pond, there's the book. All right, so a few questions to throw at you. Why would they go fishing in the first place? So what about that pond? Why that pond specifically? And if the father already has two jobs and the mom is also working, why do they have to continue to fish to put food on the table? Lastly, when the son asks his dad about his brother and when he used to fish, he looks away in a kind of a distant stare. Why do you think he responded that way? Why did he respond and react in the way he did when his brother was brought up? So in addition to those questions, I want you to think about what a compelling question you could ask. What would be an example of a compelling question you could ask students after reading that book? A compelling question is like an overarching theme or question of the theme when it comes to, in this case, immigration, moving, family. So an example of a compelling question would be, how do people keep a piece of their home when they immigrate to a new place? And so, then students would be able to explore and investigate how immigrants keep a little piece of their home with them even when they come to, say, the United States, as in a different pond. So Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the compelling question. Thanks for listening, and